2, 1.
Oh, yes, he did. Okay, hold on.
Wait a minute, he did?
Levi was threatening me as I was
gave you a
walking-
countdown.
Levi was threatening me as I was walking to the chair. He's like, I'm going live. And I was like, do it. And then he literally did it. So, hello, everyone.
We are live.
Welcome to Monday.
That's a very professional way to start this. Should we have closed the blinds?
Yes, I'm going to do
we
that.
We have a remote to close the blinds now. So we don't
Okay.
even have to do anything. We could just press a button.
Tell me, for all these professional people, like, why are we doing this? You guys are so unprepared. Tell me the verse again. I got the chapter. Tell me the verse again.
27.
Okay. All right.
John.
I'm sorry, guys.
14,
I
27.
wasn't ready. I'm ready now.
Yeah, why didn't we have Joe on for this episode?
He was busy putting in our blinds.
Yeah, seriously.
Team effort.
Yeah, team. Hey, exactly.
Oh, Levi did help put in the blinds.
That is true.
Look at that. Is it getting darker in the video?
I'm not sure if you can tell it over there. We can just see everything better in here.
Welcome to professionalism.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah. This is why we are doing the podcast. This
Right.
is why your average person off the streets could never. I get it.
Well, it's Monday,
Yes, it is.
and that means we talk to
It's
each other.
podcast day.
It's podcast.
This, I say it every week. I look forward to this almost as much as I look forward to the service, because I feel like Sunday, it's almost like stimulus overload. You can't possibly spend the time with every
Right.
single person that you want to. So it's like 5-minute sample hellos to everybody.
I'm doing basically on Sunday, I'm doing what Levi does. I'm
Right.
just staring at a computer. So he can't even enjoy Mondays.
We had this conversation actually the other day, like, can't enjoy Mondays. Sunday is a weird one. Like, the media team has got its hands full. So you guys aren't like the pastoral staff. You guys are there doing a very specific completion of a job. Even when you're doing like the transitions and stuff, it's still very task oriented.
Right.
But I don't know. I like the fact that we can stop, take a deep breath, we can take our time, get this part of it, and like actually lean in.
Right.
Questions, everything
Yeah,
goes
go
with it.
deeper. So
To do that, for us to successfully answer the questions,
that people have.
the other half of that is the willingness to ask the questions.
Lydia said that when she watches, she's like, I watch every time. And I'm like, really? Do you? Because I don't see you in the comments.
I'm not seeing any questions.
And I'm going to hear about this tonight. But
Your mom said last week lightning storm, this week hot as Hades. What's lined up for next week? I
Hail.
got to be a part
Locusts.
I got to be a part of a historic winter storm. Now, granted, I wasn't there for all of it, but I was there for part of it in Texas this winter. So bad. What are we
is
looking?
it raining?
No, I think it's the wind.
Yes.
The wind is blowing.
Oh, is it?
really
Okay.
bad.
So the wind is blowing. Okay.
And then, the historic winter storm in Texas, and now the historic summer storm, so to speak.
Yeah, Portland broke
3 records.
Portland's
records.
broken.
Portland's broken.
Portland is broken and continues breaking even records.
This breaking news, Portland's breaking.
They're bringing back the fires to help cool things off.
Yeah, so
Too soon.
so heat is good. So Joe preached this week.
I love that guy so much.
Dude, me too.
That
Oh my
guy
gosh.
never preaches that I'm not like,
I know.
You know what I like about Joe is that he's got such a pastor's heart, and it's no secret that I think sometimes I go back and forth with what's a fair balance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do I honor God's call in my life without becoming someone that I'm not?
Right.
But it's fun to watch somebody like Joe, who is similar to me, but then has that like deeply, deeply passionate heart for the things that he's so good at.
Right. I mean, he to me, he has such a calming presence that I like when he comes around. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's just kind of like okay, we got this.
That's well said. Yeah. Well, and he's like the grandpa that everybody wants. He's the kind of grandpa you would like. He's just jovial and fun, and like that's not an age joke, Joe. If you're listening, it's just like he's
It's
like
a Balt joke.
Well, wow.
Hey.
You said
You
it.
can't do
Shots
that.
fired.
You can't say those
Shots
things if I can't say
fired.
anything.
I didn't say it, but my point is, he's the kind of person that you just know, like, genuinely has your best interest in heart.
Right.
So
100%.
glad that he's a part of the team.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is that he's also cynical about the same things that I'm cynical about, and my phone's volume was up. I never remember turning it down. He's cynical about a lot of the same things that I feel like I'm cynical about. And so even the conversations like after church, he's at a personal level, I genuinely love him as much as I'm supposed to love him visibly.
Yeah.
So
What a wonderful guy.
it's his humility and grace that comes through. Love that, Joe Pearson. Yep, absolutely.
So he went over
3 points.
3 points.
Trace pointus.
The 3 P's.
What were they? I know them.
Patience.
Nope.
No. Sorry, not peace. Patience.
Persistence.
Peace.
Pettiness.
Peace.
Peace was one.
Power.
Yes.
Peaches.
And pranks. No.
Purpose.
Purpose.
Peace, power, and purpose.
Purpose.
Yep. And the only reason I know that is because I made a point to stop and go back over the stuff. I've never heard anybody present peace as a possession before. I've never heard that talked about, that peace as a possession.
Right.
And your most valuable possessions, you always know where they are. Mm-hmm. I've never heard anybody say that way.
That's
that peace is something that is ours. It's available to us. And if we were to really value it the way that we should, we'd always know where it's at.
Right.
We always know the source of the peace.
Right.
Which was valuable possession. Because he said talk about his mom's guitar that he kind of banged around, didn't realize was valuable. And then
My most valuable possession.
And I know we're a church. Oh, possessions aren't important. They're not supposed to. I'm saying, let's get over that. Just okay.
I mean, there's actual value, like a car.
Family, yeah.
Okay. There's actual things that do cost money to replace if they got lost, so you just don't lose them, like a car and that kind of stuff. But I would say probably like my most valuable possession that is to me valuable is like,
that's all I mean.
I like watches.
Yeah, just something that's personal.
Yeah.
You're like, we want to be careful. You're like, I have this thing that's worth $4 million and it is hidden in my house.
In my house.
Oh, wait, no, it isn't.
Under the floorboard, if you go right to the left.
You know what I love? It's just a personal thing. I love when things are hidden in plain sight. We did a series about this once upon a time, but like if you had all the world's knowledge, the things that are available that you could go just pick up, like drop points, like you watch movies and they're like, okay, just leave this under this park bench and walk off. And they're like, but it's hidden in plain sight. So people are passing and it's there if you knew what you're looking for. And peace feels like one of those things where it's like, it's right there if you knew where to look. And people pass it all the time. And it sounds like something you'd see maybe in like a Nicolas Cage movie of like, it was there the whole time, like hidden in plain sight.
No, and I've found that I mean, it's like so comforting when you're in even like a bad mental spot, wherever you are, just to take a second and remember that you do have peace right now.
Right.
Just to like,
if you stop
in
plain sight. I wonder if we could
sit there for a second.
I wonder if we could get some comments just to try to start getting people to pushing buttons on their computers or phones. Valuable possessions. Like, what are some of? I love that because it was his mom. Like, there's a sentimental tie to it. Before the questions that are coming through so rapidly right now, what are some valuable possessions? I don't know. What do people have? I know that it's a revolving door, but that's what horses are for me. Like the horses that I buy and sell.
Yeah.
I like watching them progress and I like seeing them get better and go. And there's a beauty element to that.
I would say my car.
Yeah, you put a lot of.
I saved for it, Pumbaa, and then I got it was my first like thing I could kind of have to try to get sponsors, with video and media and stuff, and so that worked out, and then just
they decked out your car for you,
and then just cleaning it, and I guess it's one of those things where it's just like it's a nice thing that I saved and got, and and so I mean I think that's like a large one.
I feel like I have a unique view on that because, like,
30 cars.
Well, no.
Oh, okay.
Like losing everything that you think is your most valuable possession.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that's why people aren't jumping in on this because they're afraid it's gonna be a sneak attack of like, ha?
I mean, maybe.
Earthly possessions are not valuable. That is not.
Well, I mean, I
you're
can't
right.
I just can't think of something that it's like, oh yeah, that's my
lifelong.
That's
thing.
my lifelong thing because it's like it doesn't matter.
My dad brought back a porcelain geisha girl from the war that he found after the atomic bomb. He gave
That's
it to
cool.
his sister. My aunt Barbara gave it to me.
That's cool.
Wow.
That's cool.
No way.
Wow.
That's a fascinating thing. My horse at 23 years old. Yep.
Dang.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's value. Obviously, there's things that you're like, it's not. I don't think it's like financially valuable. I'm not saying that. What's the thing you'd grab in a fire, Levi? That's a good question because for you guys that don't know, Levi's family's house. Do you want to tell
Pretty
us?
lit.
Okay.
Lit.
You can't do that.
I'm not sure you're supposed to say lit. about a
If I
family.
was to grab anything from a fire,
Yep.
if I could choose anything, it would probably be my childhood photos.
Yeah, see, and like
Dude,
those are
that
things
Because
that,
like there's no like, it's a weird feeling not being able to almost to remember your childhood because you don't have any image to attach it to. You know, like how like an image will come up on Facebook. This was 6 years ago, and you remember that moment, right?
Yeah.
But like not being able to go back to that is weird.
Yeah, and I mean, photos for me are I love Polaroids.
Yep.
I'm gonna taking those around the studio, and because it's like, it's actually time travel. It's
Right,
actual
right.
art. It's actual,
You're pausing time.
because you're just at this moment you're clicking that button, and it's like that moment is captured
Yeah.
right there. And you can always look at that photo and say, at that exact moment, that's the face I was making. That's the emotion we had. It's literally
It's like you're
captured.
pushing pause. It's a screen grab
Right.
of your life. If your
So-
life is playing out, it's a screen grab
Yeah.
of a moment.
And I don't have, I mean, I don't have physical photos of myself or Lydia or, I mean, anything, just because I've grown up, I guess, in the digital age. But like, I mean, my mom has, childhood photos of us and stuff. But that's something I really want to get into, is having the physical photos. And I was talking to you about getting into film photography and stuff like that, because it's so, I mean, I love it so much. It's so interesting. But that's a great point, because if I did have those physical photos, that's like that's what I would grab for sure.
So, one of my most cherished life items, because I'm going to read a lot of stuff from my grandparents, my grandpa's antiques that were saved after the house fire, my family, things like that. This is a true story. What I'm about to tell you is a true story, but it's going to seem like it isn't, but it is. My grandpa one day was out moving some cows with some friends. He was a kid or younger. And there's this wash. It's like a where the river has worn down. So it's like flat land. You couldn't really see it, but when you come up on it, it's a little canyon area.
Right.
And in this little draw, there's an eagle is down in the water. He's out there with some friends, and he's got a rope. So he sneaks up behind where this eagle's down in the deal, and he has his friends there kind of guiding him this way and that way because they can see him, and they said the eagle's kind of looking over there at him. He's down this thing drinking. And my grandpa sneaks up on him with his rope. He's got his rope swinging, and when he gets close enough, the eagle takes off, and my grandpa ropes this eagle. True story. That's the part that feels like a lie. It's a true story. He keeps a foot off of this eagle, which is highly illegal, by the way. This didn't actually happen.
Are you saying eagle or seagull?
Eagle.
Okay, that's different.
My wife says this is highly illegal to have, so don't tell the rest of that story. Well, here's the rest of it. It got missent. So it exists in the world somewhere. Oh, no. It was supposed to be mine. I know who ended up with it, and they won't give it back. They had as much right to it as I did. But my point is, that would have been a cool thing to have. But here's the thing. If I had gotten it, which I didn't, which I would never have contraband, ever. But
Ever.
if I did, I wouldn't have even been able to tell that story because, but my grandpa roped an eagle. It's a true story.
Dang, that's really cool.
That's the sermon, Mike. You wanted me to sum up the sermon? There you go.
Rope and eagle. No.
You rope an eagle and Jesus and
Yeah.
no, but to think of peace as a possession is huge. I've never heard anybody say it as like Jesus is going, I'm leaving you my peace. Let's go to the verse real quick. Beth Weesey, who I met in person yesterday. We are now friends. There's people that I get to know on Facebook. It is a weird feeling to see them, and then you introduce yourself and you say their name. You're like, I know you from Facebook.
Yeah.
Most important, of course, are my people and my animals, picture albums, trinkets my dad and grandpa gave me mean the most. They have no monetary value, but they mean the world to me. Exactly. Okay. The verse is John 14, verse 27. It says this, peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives you. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid. Mike McLean, here's the 3 P's. Peace, power, purpose. And I'm trying to remember exactly how he tied in the beginning of that, but those were the 3 takeaways that I remember. Power was the story being he hooked his Duramax to the...
Right. It's so nice to have power.
But here's what stood out to me. Here was the story of the day, and I'm confident this is... Hey, by the way, thank you guys for getting involved. This is so much more fun when people will participate.
Yeah, for real.
This is the one that got me. Telling the story of the guy. Oh, first of all, the drunk brother out there buying dinner in his... That's funny that my wife sent me the text. I guess, don't finish. This is an illegal story.
Yeah.
Don't finish your illegal story on a church podcast.
Yeah.
Sorry, Pastor Weaver. Anyway, his brother at the Big Boy. Were you guys ever around for Big Boys? You ever been to one of those? These restaurants, someone else, back me up on this. The Big Boy restaurants, they used to have this big, giant Big Boy statue. It was in a Joe Diffie song, I think. Anyway, being out at 2:00 in the morning, feeling guilty about being out drinking and buying the local pastor dinner instead of asking the local pastor, why are you out at 2 in the morning? Because that should be the rational question. I love the story about his brother. Same here. And the point he was making was that pastor later went on to say that in a moment where he felt like nobody loved him, that somebody bought him dinner and how meaningful that was.
Right.
And God used somebody that was blasted at 2 in the morning, partying, coming home, trying to eat dinner to love on somebody that needed it in the moment.
Right.
It sounds crazy, but I went back. There was a restaurant in Hobbs, New Mexico called the North 40 when I was in college. And I was so broke I didn't have any money to eat. And I didn't want anybody to know I didn't have any money to eat. And so I just was eating crackers from the salad bar at the North 40. And I had that moment where I was like, I know what that feels like. I know that moment. And then at the same time, as a pastor, you go through moments where you're like, man, and you guys don't have to reach out, we love you. I know I'm loved. I'm just saying the low points where you're like, is this working? Is the vision that we had in the beginning, is it really going to happen? Is it really going to come to fruition? And so it's not very often you get to hear both sides of that story.
Right.
And feel connected to it.
Yeah.
I feel like I did all talking there.
No, I mean, I loved the when he was talking about the Duramax, and how his second hand on the job said, I'm already halfway through the field, or I'm already through the field. And he's like, I just put it in 4 low and just started moving. And he's like, it feels so great to have power.
Right.
And I forget that all the time of
Right.
like, oh, wait, God is literally God. Like the most powerful being in everything. And he's just loving us.
Yeah. Immeasurable amount of power to go where he calls you.
Right.
And that God doesn't feel obligated to give us the power to do whatever we want
Right.
against his will. We're under our own power at that point. Holly just said, how many times do we hear someone say they're far from God? That was a great point too. No one's ever far from God.
Yeah.
Never. Everyone is always a moment away from a decision for God. Absolutely. Here's probably the story that's going to stick out to me was when he talked about the guy who was cast as Jesus.
That's what I was just about to say. Yeah.
And the not family-friendly tattoos, and we all know somebody like that. You know what I loved? He was talking about the tattoos, and I just think about, like, if somebody would have met Jason Graham 6 years ago, you'd be like, that guy's going to end up at Shiloh Ranch. You'd be like, well, if he's going to end up anywhere, it'd probably be Shiloh Ranch, but I don't know that you would have seen that
Right.
in his future, and now it's hard to imagine what we do without him around. He's just such a big part of the culture here.
Yeah.
This was what stood out to me. Still gets me is who's qualified to play Jesus?
Yeah.
Which one of us is the good one that gets to play Jesus? Mm-hmm. And Joe's point was we all get to play Jesus every day. That's what we're all supposed to be called to do is play Jesus to people.
Right.
That's one of the things actually specifically about Levi that stands out to me is that he, at a glance, was so different than our culture. You know, he's like a young skater from not this culture, and yet it's hard to imagine Levi anywhere else. It's hard to imagine this place without Levi.
Yeah.
It's that collective storytelling of Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and I love the when Joe said, you know, where he thought it was a joke when the head guy said, well, you know, that guy or Steve or whatever his name
That guy
was,
cannot play
he
Jesus.
can't play Jesus. And he's like, yeah, nobody can. So what's your point? What do you want, you know, Kevin to do it, who wears a cardigan? No, dude.
Kevin.
Jesus
Cardigan
wasn't
Kevin.
wearing a cardigan.
Cardigan Kevin's going to do it?
Yeah, no. It's going to be Steve or whatever his name was.
Can I tell you a story about my childhood Easter play? Have I told you this story?
You've told this.
I've told this story.
I'm not remembering.
There was a guy, and his last name was Pace. If you're listening, I'm so sorry. I don't know your first name anymore, and I don't know you. And so I'm sorry in advance. I was a child. I had a little pony named Ezra, and we named her Ezra because she was so old when we got her, and there was like an old woman in the Bible named Ezra. So we named her Ezra. Did Joe state that peace is the absence of stress, anxiety, or is it something else we can receive from Jesus? Do you ever feel like that your dad's questions, he's helping us because he's asking us questions based on the answers he's wanting us to remember?
Phil?
Yes.
Because I know where he's going with that, because that is something he mentioned, Mike, as luck would have it, that peace is not that the world gives us.
Right.
That's what
and
Jesus
that's
is saying.
huge for me.
My peace that I give you is
Right.
not of this world. It's not based on circumstances. It's not external.
Mm-hmm.
It's this internal thing, and it's yours. You get to have it.
That was huge for me because I mean, that was like my main what's mantra mean? That was like my main mantra.
That was like the soundtrack to your life.
Yeah, it was like, Lord, give me peace. Lord, give me peace. Because I just wanted to be content with any situation. I wanted to be the guy that could be in any situation and just be like, hey, man, it's all going to work out because of who God is, not because of any other thing. And, but I never felt it. And I mean, I always had anxiety and I was always stressed out and blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, Lord, why are you not giving me peace? And then it occurred to me one day with, you know, help from my dad was to say, he never said he would give you worldly comfort.
Yeah.
He said
Yeah.
he'd give you peace. And what is peace? And it's, peace is contentment in chaos.
Yeah.
You know, I think of there's this iconic scene, in it, for me at least. I think it was either in Band of Brothers or maybe Save It Private Ryan, where the medic, or no, not the medic, the priest on the battlefield on D-Day, where, you know, he kneels down to this guy who's dying. He died. He walks up, and this, you know, when guys are flying by him, dying and dying, he just walks up peacefully and walks over and blesses the next guy, walks over and blesses the next guy, and he just has peace.
Right.
Why guys are literally falling down dead right beside him, and at any moment he could just go away.
Right.
I think it was Saving Private Ryan. I could be wrong, but
I think you're right.
But that is the image that pops out to me of that's the kind of peace I want. Except
Right.
that battlefield. Oh man, I'm not. I was gonna say, am I really about to compare that to a normal day? But what I'm saying is, like, you know, you can be in that mental situation
Right.
anywhere. You can have that same kind of
I
peace
will say-
anywhere because you have it.
Okay. Now listen, I'm not in the military. Nobody doesn't know that. Everybody knows that.
Right.
I suspect that moments of combat, there is almost a level of peace of like, it could end, but if it ends, I know what I expect at the end to look like. I think to me personally, now I qualify, I'm not in the military. However, my most chaotic moments are moments when there's a lack of things happening. I feel the most lost and the least amount of peace when it feels like nothing is going on. I'm a good delegator in general. I'm a good delegator, and I think everybody that works around here would probably say amen that. But as a result, sometimes things are just okay. They're just good. And I have a day I'm like, Well, then what do I do?
Right.
Then where do I go? What am I like? This is terrible. And like my biggest meltdowns are not necessarily like out on a battlefield necessarily, because I think there's a sense of like, well, I can't control that.
Right.
There's a mission. Let's get the mission done. And I guess if this is how it ends, what can I do?
Right.
As opposed to sitting at home and going like, am I doing it right? Am I trying hard enough? Am I working hard enough? Bo Wendell said something the other day.
But couldn't that exact same mindset be applied to that situation?
But that's exactly right.
Right.
The same peace that's available on a battlefield or in my moments is chaos. Go, 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 go. I still am expected to have peace. That same peace, if peace, like Lacey said, if peace is a person, it's available. I got to get caught up. You guys, everybody's commenting again. She said, hold on. Kim Dosher said, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control. These are the fruits of the Spirit. How do you exhibit these fruits when the world is so sideways? And that's your answer. That's what you were just saying. You get there by internal, not external. If you're a fountain, this is a Mike McLean saying, but if you're a fountain, it flows out of you into the world. Otherwise, it flows from the world into you, and you are a result of your input. Mm-hmm. So if you're going back and demanding peace and power and purpose, like that, God, if you said it, I want to operate in that, then you're bringing that through your relationship with Jesus into the world. That's a quick answer, but I'm getting these other ones. Mary says, I loved and found it exciting to know that God has a purpose for everyone. This helps me, especially with my family and friends who do not believe. Then Joe mentioned Paul, nothing is impossible with God. Everyone has a purpose. Every single person has a purpose.
My dad said it in terms of, he says, every thing was created, or maybe it was, I think it was you. Everything was created because of a problem, or everything was created because of a thought.
Everything in the world started as a thought.
Right. And then I think it was my dad who said that thought, Jesus says, I need somebody for this position, to do this thing in this world.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put Jacob there in that spot.
Right.
Jacob
with that
is
family.
my
intended solution for that
problem.
Yeah.
And then Levi's my solution for this problem, and Jordan's my solution for that problem. So that to me, everybody has a purpose. It's like, it makes so much sense to me.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't just throw people on a rock and be like,
I guess I'll figure
it out.
No.
Do it today. No, I mean, he put us here for a reason. And I mean,
so we're going into July, and we're talking about dreams, reestablishing dreams. That's what I want to know that I don't yet know. I mean, I'm starting into a series without even fully knowing the answer, and today was a big step that direction. But when did the church stop expecting the people to dream and have goals and ambition and choice? And full disclosure, we just finished a couple podcasts with Justin McKee, and he said something that was so fascinating. He said, I think when we started teaching predestination as it doesn't matter what you do, it's already all done anyway, that we took people's choices away.
right.
And when you take people's choices away and it's like, well, it doesn't matter, we don't feel drawn to a problem because we're like, we don't have to be a solution. It doesn't matter what we do.
Right.
Versus, no, God called me here to be the solution for this. And if I can carry peace into that situation, then I matter and my choices matter. What I do with my life matters because God wants to solve a problem using my life. Wade just said, here's so much wisdom within Jet, yet he hasn't been on the show as of yet. Yeah, that sounds like a grandpa.
We were going to start the show with Jet sitting here where I'm at. And then I was going to be like, Jet, what are you doing? Get out of my spot.
Beth said, Joe talked about cashing checks, not money, but stressors, chaos, and trying times. My Peace account gets weekly deposits from Shiloh and prevents me from getting overdrawn. Yeah, that's well said. I think that's.
Oh, Dad. What is that word for a verse that you can cash in like money? It's a word. It's not manna, because that's a different thing.
That you can cash in. It's a word that you can cash in.
From, dang it, man.
A cashier check.
It's not a cashier check. It's like basically where you say, like, he told me this when I was going to Africa.
I guess we'll know if Mike stayed on or not.
Yeah.
Based on whether or not he answers.
Because before I was going to Africa, that trip literally for me was like kind of an anxiety breaker of like, if I can do this, I can go, hang out with friends without being freaked out, social anxiety type stuff. Rhema. It was Rhema.
Rhema. He stayed on.
He stayed on. Rhema. And so he says Rhema is a word
Like a promise.
for, where you say, I'm going to memorize this verse and I'm going to take it out of my wallet. If I'm freaked out, if I'm nervous, am I this, I'm going to take it out of my wallet and remember it and saying, you know what, I'm going to buy peace right now.
It's currency in the kingdom.
Right.
That, to me, is why it's so important to know the nature of Jesus.
Right.
Because when you go to the Word or you're in a situation and you hear something, you can know how it was spoken into the Word,
Right.
how it was intended. I don't know that it's possible to cash in a rhema word of God without knowing the heart of Jesus. Because how many times do you hear people, I'm curious, Mike, what's your thoughts on that? Because I don't know how you would go to the Word and hear some of the things that Jesus said and not completely misinterpret them and go the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Because he said some really inflammatory things. I didn't come to bring peace, but a sword.
Right.
What?
Now I have to bring
He goes,
some-
your mom and your brothers are outside, and he goes, who's my mother? Who's my brothers? There's a lot of things. Hey, will you heal my daughter? It's not right that I feed the dogs before the children.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. So you have to know. You have to know his heart.
Rhema, I think Rhema is like knowing who Jesus is and then going to the Word and going, I know that this is how you meant it. This is what you said. This is how you meant it. I'm saying yes. I'm taking that. That's what I need in this moment, without turning into, in the South we had this term. Did you ever hear this term? Did you guys ever hear this term? The name it and claim it. Have you ever heard of this?
I've heard it. I don't know what it means.
It got real weird. The name it and claim it was, in the name of Jesus, I claim whatever.
Oh.
Whatever. And it's kind of loosely has to be based on the word, maybe.
Matthew 4:4.
Yeah, you want to, anybody?
I got.
Yeah, but that got a little carried away. I think there is, he called his mom Mary woman. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are things that Jesus would say that if you took it out of context, you could really misunderstand what was being said, including, I think Jesus wants me to have a $64 million jet to spread. What?
He gave
I'm
you
naming
a
it,
jet.
and I'm claiming it, and you're like, that doesn't feel like what he was saying.
Yeah, you have a jet.
I already have a jet.
Matthew 4:4. So this is where
There's some of that wisdom
this
Wade
is
was
where
talking about. there.
Rhema comes from. So it says, but Jesus told him no. The scriptures say, people do not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. And the word was Rhema.
Yeah.
So it says, basically you don't live by bread alone, but by the Rhema of God, which is like the meaning, the essence, the currency, where you can say, you can hold on to it so tightly and say, this will bring me peace.
Yes.
I know this so
See, and
well.
that was the proper foundation for what did eventually become the name it, claim it movement. The proper foundation was there are things that Jesus goes, this you can know, and this you can cling to.
Right, exactly.
There's other stuff that's going to be revealed later, the parables and things like that. But this right here, you can know that this is how I meant it.
Right.
And cling to that.
Yeah.
What's the best way to understand it the way Jesus said it? Because I think it's easy to misinterpret. This. Love versus fear. You have to know what love is. You have to know what fear is. And if the way that Jesus said it brings about fear, it wasn't that.
Right.
Fear says me over you, my survival over your survival.
Right.
Love says your survival over my survival. Outward altruistic love versus inward selfish seeking. And I just lost another point that I was about to make, but that answer was worth giving.
Yeah.
I lost my point. I don't remember where I was going with that.
Yeah.
Oh, Rhema. That was the intended. If you were going to cross a desert, let's say, and somebody goes, trust me, when you go as far as you can go, I'll have water there waiting on you, but only enough to get you to the next checkpoint. Or I'll give you 7,000 gallons of water right now. I mean,
choose the
that's
first
what
one.
life is.
Right.
That's what life is God going, when you need it, it'll be there. Because you can't afford to pull 7,000 gallons across the desert.
You would go through that in the first mile.
You can't, and it makes the desert harder. Just unpack. Trust me, when you need it, you'll have it. That's why faith is such a vitally important thing. That's the power to operate it. Like, I know that when I need it, God will provide it. And if I don't have it, God hasn't provided it because I don't need it yet. And I can keep moving light. I can go light. And he's like, no, I'll be right there with you. It's like, I remember like cross country bike trips that I used to hear about. People like, I cross country on a bike. And I'm like, that's amazing. And then you find out there's like there was a van, and then you went like to hotels at night, and then you got out of the van. Like the purist in me is like, that's not a cross country bike trip.
You've never done it in your life, but you're like, that's not how you do it.
I couldn't ride a bike from here to Bellevue, but especially today because your tires would melt and pop. But it is that of like the van's here. You're doing the pedaling, but the van's here. The real heavy lifting, like God's got you, whatever you need. And that's, to me, that's the rhema of like, when you need it, you can live on this as being truthful. There's so much power in that.
Yeah.
And then the purpose is we all have a cross country bike trip. Every single one of us, when we wake up tomorrow morning, we've got something that God has got specifically designed for us to accomplish.
Yeah, and the same with power. I mean, to me, I can have 100,000 different rhemas. One can be for peace. One could be for if I need power, if I'm feeling weak, if I'm feeling low.
Right.
One is for wisdom, whatever it is, meaning like throughout your day, I mean, it is just a whirlpool of emotions and things you need and everything like that. And to be able to pull out that rhema and say, I have power, get out of my head, me.
Right.
Get out of my head,
Right.
me. I want, because for me personally, most of it is just fighting against myself, my own self-doubt, my own psychoanalyzing everything.
See if this makes sense. It's a two-part. If you're going down the river in like a float boat,
right,
and the rhema is the patches that fix the boat, right? That in the moment that you spring a leak, you've got the patches to fix it.
right.
I think the bigger point to that, the greater point that I'm starting to hopefully begin to understand is God wants you to be scared. He wants you to be on an adventure.
Yeah.
Not scared in a fear way. He wants you to be like, in the same way we ride roller coasters, we scare ourselves on purpose. In that same way, I think God is excited when we go on an adventure.
Yeah,
because he's like, but don't worry, if you
I'll be
up,
there. Yeah.
You've got the word. You're going to be okay. Let's go. I think God is up there like excited when we decide to get out of our comfort zone and pursue something and go after a dream and, pursue the promised land. Because that's kind of what he said about food. Like, don't worry. When you get there, you'll have it.
Yeah.
And then that's what's so funny. They got to Rephidim. Again, if I ever get a tattoo, it'll probably say Rephidim. But that's what's so interesting is they got to Rephidim. There's no water. And they're like, we can't take care of ourselves like this. And he's like, I'm teaching you something. If you're there and there's no water, maybe I'm about to teach you something. And they were like, we can't take care of ourselves like this. And God's like, you can always get out of the river and not participate. Right. If you want to sit down like a bump on a log and never go anywhere and never experience adventure, there's the bank. Get out of the boat, swim over there, and give up and quit.
Right.
If you want to be someone who gives up and quits and never risks anything, there's your chance. But if you stick with me, I'm going to send you over the rapids and you're going to scream and yell and it's going to be an adventure. And when you're done, you can say that you lived. If you need a patch, here you go. Right. And I think that the purpose of that in that is everybody's got the rapids. Everybody's got their raft. Like, let's go make an effort to live. Let's figure it out. Let's wake up in the morning just a touch scared of like, God, I'm fully dependent.
Right.
I am fully, and that's why people who have nothing depend on God so much quicker. Is there? What do I have to lose? What am I risking? I'm not giving up anything. Mm-hmm. The people who are like, well, I've got a nice little tent here, and I got dry supplies, and if I were to lose those, I wouldn't be able to take care of myself.
That's crazy. Was it last night? I was reading out of 2 Kings, or was this
Did you dream that you were reading out of 2 Kings?
For a second there, I was like, was this a dream? Because it goes so well into that. That's so crazy.
What?
They were King Ben-Hur.
Ben-Hur. I think that's a movie.
I love that movie.
No. It was in there. So anyway, they're fighting against another tribe. And the prophet said to him, because the guy went to the prophet and said, I'm going to kill you because the Lord, why is the Lord doing this to me?
Right.
And he says, don't worry. tomorrow, you know,
dig your trenches.
like tomorrow will be, you know, a bag of barley will be one piece of silver, you know, versus.
Oh, right.
But you won't be able to eat any of it. And then he's like, you're crazy. That's not going to happen. And then there was a couple people with leprosy right outside the city gates. And they're like, hey, you know what? We're going to die if we stay here. And our enemy over there, they're probably going to kill us too. But if they don't kill us, maybe they'll feed us for an hour. And if they do kill us, that's better than dying.
We're already
here.
dying anyway.
Yeah, we're already
What
dying.
are we going to risk?
So they go over there, and nobody's there because God actually used those guys to scare off the entire army.
Right.
You know, because
they saw the two lepers coming, and something about it struck fear into the hearts.
Yeah, well, it said, you know, God made it sound like they were chariots and horses and an army coming towards them, and so they were freaked out, and all of them fled. And so then they were just in this camp and started grabbing stuff, and then they went back and told everybody, and everybody came out and grabbed stuff. So it was true. But all that to say, they were kind of like, we're going to die anyway.
Yeah. What are we risking?
What are we risking?
Shout out to the men's Bible study. Shout out to the men's Bible study. It's one of the best Bible studies I've ever been a part of this last Thursday.
Right.
I won't say names. There are several people there with military backgrounds.
Right.
They said one of the biggest issues they had in Afghanistan is that the leaders of the high posts were diehards for the Afghanistan people. Mm-hmm. They were diehards. You would never, ever, ever sway them. They were the Daniel refusing to accept the new culture. Mm-hmm. And because they couldn't get to and win over the leaders, the thought leaders, they could never win over that part of Afghanistan. Never going to happen because there were leaders that wouldn't bend.
Right.
So you go back to that story you just told, and the guy that the king was leaning on said, that'll never happen. Mm-hmm. And the prophet said, they're going to trample you in the process, in essence. Like, you'll never see it.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it says that.
Was it Elijah?
I think so, Elijah or Elisha. Yeah. But they fled out of the city and they trample this guy and he dies and he never gets to see it. But I think what's interesting to me in that, if you're going to cross the desert with cups of water waiting on you at the checkpoints, that takes a tremendous amount of faith. That's a hard enough thing to convince yourself to do anyway.
Right.
But that voice of doubt is like that leader in the high place that won't give ground, and how damaging that is, the little specks of doubt and how much damage those do in our lives, that the thought leaders, when we're positive, we're like, God can do this. Stop. You guys don't, like the 10 and 2. Remember the prophets sent out in the promised land, 10 of them were bad, 10 bad, 2 were good. 2 of the people came back and said, we can do this. They got to go into the promised land. The 10 who goes, we can't do this. They never did. And I think sometimes that purpose, that person who goes, God's got me. What am I really risking? And within wisdom, obviously within wisdom. But when God calls you to an adventure, the damage for the legacy of your life and your family to go, oh, I don't think so.
Right.
That'll never happen. Even if God were to move today, the rains wouldn't have come and the crops couldn't have grown. And we've got all this intellectual reason why God can't do what we feel like he's calling us to do. Mm-hmm. That's the killers of dreams. That's what kills the dreams. That's what keeps people from discovering the rapids and the waves, because we don't believe there is water waiting.
Right.
So we don't leave.
Yeah.
We stay in Egypt. You know, we're the children of Israel who stay. We would rather stay in slavery than risk it all to go find the promised land.
Yeah. Oh, and the
I'm ruining a lot of the July series by.
I told you, I was like, the danger of a Monday night that we're gonna face is like, okay, so so that was the sermon, and then it's like, yes, oh, and this is the next sermon, but I can't
You'll get
say
to
it,
hear it in sermon form, but
yeah.
that's where I'm at, is like, wait a minute, when did we stop believing that God was going to take us on a rapid adventure?
Have confidence. But every time,
go ahead.
Like every time, you can be walking in the desert, but then there's going to be, I'm thirsty right now. I'm thirsty. If
it was up to me, there'd be water here.
I would have a lot of water. I'd be swimming. But then it's like, oh, right as it's like, okay, and then boom, water.
Well, I think what we're saying in those moments is, I wish I was just God and I didn't have to worry about it.
Right.
Which is exactly what Adam and Eve fell for.
Mm-hmm.
But, dang, I'm ruining July. You're going to hear this all again. Do you know what got Adam and Eve in trouble?
Citrus.
There's a
glucose.
there's a Chris Ledoux song that says, I'm a lover of the other side of the hill.
Right.
Chris Ledoux got them in trouble.
He did.
Yeah, he did.
Dang.
The unknown, the sense of adventure that is wired into us. The enemy just had to say, there's good over that hill. And they're like, oh, dang,
You're probably right.
I want to see it.
Right.
There's a good in that. You know, you think of like Gus and Call and Lonesome Dove. They're like, I've never been to Montana. Me neither. I want to go. I want to go too. Let's get her. Okay, let's do. There is something intrinsically in us that wants to know what it's like to ride the rapids. We want to know. And so when we see somebody else accomplishing like greatness, we do two things. We're like, oh, I wish I could do that. And we're like, well, here's why I can't do that. Well, here's why they shouldn't do that. We make so many excuses from the bank because we're not willing to just go, I want to try it. I would rather risk failure and fail and not get there than sit here for one more day and wonder what it would be like to trust God.
When you said earlier, you need to define what would be a failure. You're talking to Justin, and you said, you know, people just, what's your dream? And it's so broad.
Lydia is actually watching, by the way. It shows up on my phone. It says
wow.
Lydia's watching. It's kind of a big deal. Nope. Sorry, keep going.
Sorry.
If she was really watching, she'd be commenting, but whatever.
But define a failure.
Yeah.
Because it was so clear to me so for instance, I wanted to stop eating snacks all the time.
Why?
Because they're delicious. That's the problem.
Okay.
And we have snacks in the studio sometimes. And so it's like, oh, I'm feeling kind of hungry. There's a bag of cookies. And then 17 bags later, it's 40,000 calories. But I was putting my spectrum so broad of I want to eat healthier or I want to not eat as many snacks. That one snack here.
How many is not as many?
But then when you said define a
failure.
failure, to me it was like a failure is if I eat when I'm not hungry or something like that. Or a failure is eating, you know, something that's not that whatever. That's my thing. That's neither here nor there. But it became so easy to me.
Yeah.
Because it's, you know, whatever. But because I like to be in extremes of, you know, it's exciting. Life is exciting when it's like extremes.
Yeah.
When it's we got to get this video done, so we're staying here all night. Like
Right.
that's exciting. It's
Right.
work, but it's exciting. Or, you know, we're working out, we're doing this hike, we're doing this thing because it's like, but when life is just good,
That's
it's
my definition of failure in my life.
Yeah.
Is to stay on the bank. Mm-hmm. There comes points in my life where I'm like, I don't care. Mm-hmm. It's in all of us. It's in us all to risk it all. Mm-hmm. That's why the city of Las Vegas exists. Is because there's this gambler in all of us. Some of us control it better than others, but there is something in us of like, but what if it works?
yeah.
But what if it works? What's on the other side of the
Then
desert?
I'll have $7.
What if I believed God and I just went for it and there's no water and I die in the desert? Well, at least I tried. Versus, I don't know, God, that seems awfully risky. And like, what part of following God to the best of your ability seems risky? If you fail, he can figure it out within reason. Within reason, if you're following God versus your own sense of adventure, which the two are not the same. But if God calls you to something, like things like peace, things like power and purpose, like I want to know what's on the other side of that hill. I already know what's here and it's good. But I would rather die in the pursuit than just do nothing. Jason said it. I think it's a really good point. My cousin Shiloh, she said, aim small, miss small. It's exactly right. That's also good if you're shooting, if you pick a small target. Jason said, you have to be willing to let go of everything to find peace. Peace doesn't find you. Wow. Stress, adrenaline, anxiety, fear. I know this. The sense of adventure can get tarnished when you decide, okay, this is what I really want and I'm going for it at all costs. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when you feel called to something that you're like, God, I can't make sense of that. I can't figure that you go after what you believe is the most obedient. And it's usually there's versions of following Jesus that are kind of boring or kind of mundane. Or for me, it sometimes has been staying in something that was really difficult. That was my adventure. that if I stay here long enough in my moment with Jesus, if I stay here long enough, that is my rapids of like, God, I don't want to do this anymore, but I'm staying. I'm not going, I'm staying. It's kind of in the face of all the fear. I'm not getting out of the boat. So the adventure is going to vary. It's not, this is what, listen, I don't know how many people I know that have done that. I want to be a rodeo cowboy. Okay. This is not following God. This is just you. This is your like death knell of middle age. Like, that's not what I'm talking about.
Isn't it interesting how our rapids are so unique to us, where you hear struggles other people have gone through and you're like, come on,
I could do that.
I could do that.
Right.
You know, if somebody was like, I had to learn how to take a photo, and it was, you know, I mean, I'd be like,
right.
Obviously that's not a thing, but then our rapids, you know, are things that challenge us in life, but they're exciting.
Yeah.
You know, we want to go to the other side of the hill, but like, you know, it's so unique where we're like, it's not super awesome most or some of the times.
Well,
you know?
and there's an adventure that ties into your most primal weaknesses.
Yeah.
And there's a sense of adventure that ties into your most spiritual. How do I say this? I've lived for God long enough now to know pretty well, am I hearing from God on this, or is this just me being bored? Because if I'm just bored, sometimes God's got me at an outpost. You know, I'm just like, how long is this going to last? He's like, well, until you're done.
Yeah. Till you've rested.
No. So imagine if God put you in an outpost and you're surrounded by enemy combatants, and you know, as an example, and you're like, no, God, I'm going on an adventure. God's like,
you're gonna die.
Yeah, there's no water out there. Your cup of water thing, that's not happening.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe the analogy kind of breaks down, but I do want to know that our sense of adventure hasn't died. Our sense of expectation, that even if God's got us sitting still, that our sense of expectation hasn't died with that. And when Joe says, you have a purpose, there is a raft, there are rapids, be ready. And the peace that's available as a patch to your rapids, anytime you need it, anytime you need to put a patch on your raft, here it is. But don't quit. Don't give up. Don't, I don't know that I want to give him credit for this statement, because I don't know how I feel about him, because I haven't listened to enough of his stuff. It's controversial. Do you know anything about Rich Wilkerson Jr.? Do anybody? Okay, let me just say, I don't know anything about what he teaches, but I did read a quote the other day that said frustration is a result of spiritual expectation. That when you have high spiritual expectations that things are going to happen, frustration comes when it hasn't happened yet. But it is an indicator that you got spiritual. And that's what I'm saying. Don't give up the frustration. Don't give up the frustration that God is going to do something miraculous and terrifying and exciting and fun and adventurous, and something that costs you all of your traditional external peace, but you've got this internal.
An internal fight, an internal purpose.
Well, an internal peace also.
Right.
You know, because at some point in your life, if God calls you to do something and everybody's like, oh, that's not a good idea. I mean, half of what we've done at this church that worked, people told me it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't do that way. And I took joy in it. I mean, yes, we are. And probably more than what was even necessary. But yeah, that's the peace that goes, I know that whatever comes next, I would rather die in the desert trying to find what God's got on the other side, believing there's a promised land out there somewhere. Where? I don't know, just out there.
Right.
Than to stay in the same bondage and old habits and old patterns. And
well, and then to call on the things that you know are there.
Yeah.
When the rapids come.
Yeah.
Lord, I need a patch. Here's my
When you make a
rainbow.
mistake, knowing there are patches for the raft.
Right.
People are going to hear this in the sermon. Like, I feel like I've heard this before. It keeps popping up that Lydia's watching. Does that mean she's turning it off and then watching again? Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. She's just, Lydia.
Oh, Lydia. Well, it's Monday.
Reminds me of the parable of the talents. Yes, Lacey, good timing. We're about to shut it off. The parable of the talents. That we've got permission. Like, I would have rather you lost it.
Yeah.
I would rather you have risked it. I would have rather you gone out there and just failed miserably. I think there will be people who roll into the pearly gates and Jesus is like, what were you doing? That was not what I said. And you're like, I was trying.
Come
here. Because that's where life actually takes place in eternity.
Idiot.
I would just hate to be the guy who's like, oh, I was just afraid to try anything. Having moved 6 times in 8 years due to job losses all over the United States, God was unbelievably faithful, and every move was an adventure. Mary, that's the thing. It's an adventure. Life is an adventure. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be difficult. If you knew how it all went, it's boring. I don't want to know the answer to every question, even though if I had a manual that I could cheat and take a look at the answers, I would. Yeah. I'm glad that I don't.
Yeah. Man. I'm definitely with you in the manual thing.
I would cheat. I would for sure cheat. Sure. If I got to read ahead my story, I would want to know.
I mean, I've prayed that prayer.
Because my fear is just, like, what if I'm a loser?
Yeah.
What if it doesn't work out? What if in the end I read the end of the book and I'm like, that's it?
I think it was John who I said, dude, if I could just like have the Lord always talking to me in my head, I would just have so much peace all the time. But then he said, but what would be the fun? Or what would be the and I'm like,
well, it'd be like if somebody told you the end of the movie and then you had to watch it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh.
Yeah, exactly.
But the fear,
instantly like solving the question of who you are, so it's skipping the whole reason of life.
Of how you discovered
then
it.
you're just a puppet. You're just
because like, okay, I figured out who I am and what I'm going to be. So now what?
Lydia says, just soaking it all in. I feel like I'm in a stage of life where all of what's being said applies to me a little bit. Well, you're in good company because that's probably exactly how we all feel. But yeah, that's it. Of like, do you want to watch the movie? Yes. Don't tell me the end. Don't tell me the end. Even though in the moment where it's the most like, you're like, just tell me.
Yeah.
You got to ride this out. And hey, if you mess it all up and you fail.
And think about this. The Lord is the director you can trust to make a good movie.
Well, and that's my fear. That is my fear. I'm saying it out loud so I can hold myself accountable. I'm afraid of like, what if it gets over and I'm disappointed in the end? What if I unwrap this package? I'm faithful for all of this time. And I unwrap the present at the end, and it's empty, and it says you're a loser.
All logic and who it says Jesus is in the Bible goes against that.
I know.
And so it's like,
but you gotta remind yourself. That's what I'm saying. You gotta know that at the end of the day, that God knows me better than I know myself, and like to stand on the promises of who He is. My rhema is, He's a good dad. Who asked for what child asked for a loaf of bread to give him a snake?
Right.
But that also includes being a good dad that says, if my 9-year-old daughter wants to drive, I also say no.
Right.
It's both. Because in that moment, okay, this is good. This is probably a good way to sign off at some point. But if my daughter said, can I drive? And I go, no, she could go, are you ever going to let me do anything fun? What if in the end I'm like, I'm talking to myself at the moment. I'm externally processing of like, the same trust that I have that God knows me better and will bring me to a place of satisfaction and fulfillment and my family. That includes my family. Mm-hmm. He's also willing to tell me no when I don't have it quite figured out.
Right.
And the same thing that causes doubt is also the same function that causes trust. Mm-hmm. It can't be one or the other. It's got to be both.
That's why I just want to wake up and work on the confidence to say, because there's an element of you and Justin were talking about it today of like predestination, which people can get lazy in that kind of mindset of like, well, the Lord's going to do it, so I'll just do nothing. That's not the case.
Why exist?
Exactly.
Why bother being a person if everything's already done and you're not experiencing life as an adventure?
Right.
Why are we doing this?
Right. But instead have the mindset of you wake up and something goes wrong. You hit a rapid and your food goes over the side or whatever, or you get in a fender bender, but then having the confidence of like, he's gonna figure it out for me. All I have to do is keep trudging down this desert and keep trucking. Because that would give me peace if I had that amount of confidence, that amount of faith to say, whatever, just keep going.
Jason said, I've kept my hospital bed in storage since I got out of it. You can't imagine how at peace I am now because I got rid of it. I kept it so I had it the next time I need it.
That makes you want to cry.
Stop it, Jason. We're live. I went fishing with Bo Wendell when I got home. I don't know why. I don't know why I did this. It didn't cross my mind that he may not stop at a gas station on the way up there. So we drove all the way to Maupin and didn't stop at one gas station. And he's got his drinks back there, his little citrus flavored waters and stuff like that. Well, my stupid self, I just got in the car and assumed we'd stop, and we didn't. And I didn't say anything. So I got there and I fished all day, and I haven't anything to drink all day. He shares water with me. But I didn't die. It was just part of the story. Why am I saying this? Because there are times where you're like, what? The moments of discomfort are part of the story. When you go through seasons of discomfort, that is part of the story, because otherwise what I'm saying is I want to be God in my own life, and I only want to suffer what I choose versus what's chosen for me.
Who is the hunter meat eater?
Steve Ranella.
Steve Ranella. Thanks, Jed.
Jed answers.
Steve Ranella says, that his I think it was his dad said, the best stories,
Fun.
the fun.
He says fun.
The most fun stories are after.
No, I think the way he said it, because it meant something to me when he said it too. Mm-hmm. He said, fun is not what happens when it's fun in the moment. That's like a roller coaster.
Like
it's fun in the moment.
Fun is after.
Genuine fun
Right.
is what sucks so bad in the moment, but you look back on it and you're like, that was the most fun I've ever had, because now it's over and I made it.
When you get out of the, getting a flat tire in the middle of the woods and you have to walk 16 miles out, and it's pouring snow or whatever, and then you finally get out and you're like, dude, that was great.
It sucked and then it didn't.
Yeah.
Holly, jump on here because Curtis has commented twice about helping out with the family. Can you point him, if you're watching, if you could comment the contacts for what we've got for that? Nicole Unco says, always laughing at it later. Yeah, I think, but can you imagine the kind of joy you could have that you go, hey, this might not work out and I might die. That's still better than risking nothing, doing nothing, and dying in the end anyway. That whoa, because that's the concept of living for God, is like you just go for it. When it's over, there's this belief that we know where it's headed and it's going to be okay.
It's like having the confidence. Those kids that just start, I'm talking little kids, but they just start sprinting with no care of if I fall, I'm going to split my head open or something. But they just trust that dad's going to be there to be like, no, you fell, but I say, and that kind of thing. And they're just howling. To do that in life.
See if this makes sense. Commenters are going to go crazy, so we're going to have to end this before everybody go political and crazy. It's the exhilaration of making it out okay. Exactly, Caitlin. What I learned about during COVID was this. There are people who are so afraid of dying that they're willing to forego living. The fear and the terror, what if I get sick? And I'm like, maybe it's our upbringing, maybe it's culture, maybe it's regional, I don't know, but I live every day with the reality that death could happen. That's not news. I knew that when I woke up every day of my entire life. And you heard people that were like, oh my gosh,
I might die.
This is the ultimate, and then would just give up living. Oh, I can't. It's like I'm afraid of the rapids. I'm so afraid of the rapids that I'll go nowhere. I'll do nothing. I'll live here and I'll die because I'm so afraid of living. So afraid of dying, I'm willing to not live. I swear to you, I'm not saying this for dramatics. I literally had not considered that there were people that were that afraid of the potential of dying until you saw it and you're like, well, then they would get mad at me because I'm not as scared of it. I'm a pastor of a church. What do you think I'm teaching? What do you think we're doing here? We're teaching the acceptance of death now so that we can live.
Yeah.
That's the whole concept. People are like, I can't believe you would whatever the case may be, handwritten letters, and people that were just so mad at me because what happens if you infect even one person? And I'm like, you could literally, when are we going to quit driving?
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah.
Okay. Nicole says, multiple flights on a helicopter in the last week after having a pilot crash last summer and not make it. I was nervous, but then so grateful God kept us safe, and what an awesome view of our fire and being able to fly was awesome. That's my point. You get to experience that in fear, or you get to experience that with acceptance.
Right.
If you're going to experience it anyway, why not accept it? Why not today wake up and go, God, I've accepted it. I'm going to die. Done.
Think
I
about
accept
tomorrow.
it.
Yeah, think of how your day's gonna go, man.
Can you imagine the power of someone who, Keto said, dying is inevitable, accept it. Can you imagine the power in your life if you're like, all right, then I'm already dead. I'm going to follow God as though my life has already ended. Well, someone's like, you could die. And you're like, oh yeah, I addressed that already.
I already did.
I already kind of came to terms with that. Mm-hmm. Those are the most dangerous people in the world because they're going to go out there and change the world because there's no fear of dying.
There's no fear of failure because you're like, well, whatever, man. We fail.
It is so sad seeing how many people are so scared. That's actually, I mean, realistically, that's what I'm saying is nobody wants to die. Okay. I gotta call. Okay. All right. I'll explain off air. I just got a text. But that's, I mean, my heart goes out of like, hey, if you're that afraid of dying, imagine the life of someone who's that afraid of dying, the freedom they don't have, and how could you not feel some amount of sympathy for that? I don't want to be greater than thou, and I'm so much better. Like,
Right.
Oh, wait a minute. That's a sad way to live. There's a genuine sense of like, hey, how can we love you in a way that's meaningful to you? Because if you're living like that, you're in a version of hell. Jessica said, I conquered that fear of death at 21 years old and declared myself good to go. Then I had kids and had to learn it all over again.
Yeah.
Okay, Jessica, you just tapped into like a deep. I want my kids to. I don't even want to finish this story. I hate it, but I want my kids to live the way that I'm talking about,
Yeah, but also not.
but not my kids.
But not get hurt.
My kids can be wusses. It's
Yeah.
okay. It's different.
Yeah.
She
go
just tapped
outside,
in.
but then don't go outside.
Jessica, you just tapped into my deepest hypocrisy because I'm like, don't you do that. Don't you dare. We had to watch the Bulldog, and I say had to. We watched the Bulldog in Prineville this year, and they run these steers down this long alley, so they're getting off going 100 miles an hour. And I don't know when it happened because it used to be when I was a kid, you could watch a wipeout and you'd be like, yeah, you're fine, walk it off. As a kid, like I have no sympathy at all. Now as an adult, I'm like,
Okay.
don't you jump off, don't you do it. Young man, you stay on the horse and you can go off that. What do you do? I hate watching people wipe out now. It's different.
Dude, but
if I lost my mind over my puppy being, okay, we're going to say sick? Or we're going to say that the puppy was, Jacob, was the puppy sick?
Yeah.
Or was it sick?
I think it was high as balls.
Okay. It was, got into something at the park. And it demonstrated the effects of being high, which also are the same effects of being sick.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Kayla, that's exactly what I'm struggling with. I think that's kind of what, okay. All right. Well, I'm confident that Joe did what he came to do. That's thought provoking. I feel like we got a lot to chew on this week.
Well, and that's another one of the sermons that are like, it's a staple.
Mary clarified, not my substance. Good.
Yeah,
God,
no, seriously.
At the park. It was at the lake. I'm so fired. No. The thought is that the dog got high on something it found at the lake.
Well, because we were fishing, and then Mary, came to us, and they're like, the dog's acting really weird. And we thought
got real concerned when the dog said, bruh.
when the dog was like, dude, these trees are crazy. No, and it was just not, it was freaking out, but internally.
See, her dog is never calm. And so we
It would be
realized
like
something
Donut.
was up.
It would be like Donut being sane. I'd be like, someone gave it drugs.
Something's wrong with it.
Someone gave this dog drugs.
But anyway, so because we thought maybe it was heat stroke, but then it wasn't panting or anything. It was just like super out of it. So we don't know what happened. It could have been that algae in the lake too. But anyway,
Wait,
But we're also in
was
Oregon.
it green
Yeah.
and in a baggie? Especially when your kids become adults and don't live at home anymore. Oh, I almost feel like I'll be a better parent to an adult than I am to a kid because, like, there's like I don't want them to get hurt. I don't want them to get injured. As an adult, maybe it's different. I've never been a parent to an adult, but like,
yeah, like with a kid, you would say like,
drug test from Walgreens says otherwise.
oh, that's right. They did test the dog's pee.
That's hilarious.
That dog is grounded. Wait. So what did it say?
Well, here's the thing. It said negative to everything. But slightly.
Was it really herpy, or did she borrow from her little puppy friends?
Actually, though, because
she borrow from her
the vet wanted to test at the vet clinic, and so they stuck it with a bunch of fluid.
Says #Oregon.
Yeah, exactly. But they stuck it with a bunch of fluid and gave it charcoal tablets. So when it had to go to the bathroom, it might have actually just flushed the system. Did the old.
Are we confident that Mary's dog is running with like a good
crowd?
Should we be worried about
crowd?
at-home
Does she
life
have a
for
good
that
pack?
dog?
Does she have a good pack? Because sometimes these puppies just get caught up in bad decisions, and
I know.
everything was very negative except the THC was very faint negative line. Fluids and charcoal soaked it all up. So the THC was very faint negative. Yeah, we'll see.
It was a small dog. So.
Color me skeptical, Mary.
Anyway, but
As a counselor, as a certified counselor,
As
of
a certified-
puppy drug.
DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency. So PDEA,
Pet enforced.
Puppy Drug Enforcement Agency.
I feel like other people are pretty confident we're done.
All
I feel
right,
like it was a pretty interesting, good
guys,
stopping point.
thanks for watching.
Wait a minute. Hold on. After food and 3 hours of nap, she was back to normal. It definitely was weed. It was weed for
Yeah, it was
sure.
food. That's all she
For
needed.
sure. It was hungry and sleepy.
Yeah.
And with that,
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you Sunday, and then again Monday, and then basically every Sunday and Monday
Every
after
Sunday.
that. So, have a great rest of your day, and run from bad guys. Don't eat gummies under.
Where was Brandon? Okay.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.